Haunting at 3 a.m. The true story of a Kagawad's encounter with an Aswang. Shocking revelations. Under the eerie glow of the moon, a chilling tale unfolded in a small, secluded village in the heart of the Philippines, where shadows danced menacingly among the trees. It was 3 a.m., the witching hour, a time when the veil between worlds thins and the air is thick with unspeakable fear. Locals spoke in hushed whispers about an Aswang, a shape-shifting monster that preys on the unsuspecting. Many dismissed these stories as mere folklore, but recent events threatened to change everything. One night, the village Kagawad, Manuel was on patrol, his flashlight cutting through the thick darkness like a knife through butter. As he walked the empty streets, an unnatural stillness enveloped him. The usual nighttime sounds of crickets and rustling leaves faded into an unsettling silence that made his skin crawl. Suddenly, a soft, chilling laughter echoed through the trees, a sound that shouldn't belong to this world. Manuel's heart raced. That laugh. It wasn't human. He turned sharply, trying to pinpoint its source, but all he saw were darkened silhouettes of trees, heavy and ominous. Then his flashlight flickered, casting erratic shadows that seemed to dance and dart, as if alive. He felt a prickling fear inching its way up his spine, gripping him tight. And then out of nowhere a figure emerged. It was tall and thin, its skin glistening like oil in the light. It turned its hollowed eyes toward him, a predatory gaze that promised doom. Manuel's breath hitched. He was rooted in place, trapped in a nightmare. Just as he gathered the nerve to call for help, the ground beneath him shuddered like an earthquake, but without the rumble. He staggered back, eyes wide. The villagers had told stories of how Aswangs could manipulate the earth itself, but seeing was believing. Panic surged through him like a wildfire. In that moment he realized he was not just facing legends but something far worse, something real and terrifying. Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Just as suddenly the laughter stopped. The figure hissed, baring sharp teeth that glinted like daggers. Manuel stumbled backward, feeling the ground crumble beneath him, the weight of horror pressing against his chest. Without thinking, he turned and ran, his feet pounding against the earth. Sounds of laughter and rustling filled the air again, chasing after him. The village loomed ahead, but his legs felt heavy, each step a struggle against the night's darkness and despair. What would he tell the villagers? Would they believe him? Or would he become just another story to scare children into behaving? The question echoed in his mind as he neared the village. He could hear voices now, whispers of concern cutting through the nightmare. But deep down he knew something had changed. From that moment on, the safety of their quiet lives would be forever shattered. But what was he truly dealing with? And how deep did the darkness go? The answers loomed just out of reach, waiting for the dawn to break. Manuel burst into the village, panic etched on his face. His heart thudded wildly in his chest, a relentless drum echoing his terror. Villagers had gathered, drawn by the tremors of his arrival, eyes filled with confusion and concern. What happened? Shouted an elderly woman, her voice trembling. Without waiting for a cue, Manuel gasped out his tale, each word tumbling over the other. An Aswang. I saw it. It laughed. It transformed the ground. Skepticism hung thick in the air. Faces turned to each other, brows knitted in disbelief. They heard the stories, but stories were just that, tales to keep children close at night. This was different. They were witnessing the raw terror in Manuel's eyes. Enough with your nonsense, barked a man from the back, his arms crossed defiantly. You're just rattled from walking those dark streets alone. But within the crowd, whispers of unease began to rise. Some remembered the livestock that had gone missing. Others recalled their own brushes with carelessness, chilling moments that had felt too eerie to dismiss. An uneasy silence loomed over them, thick like fog. Manuel shook his head, his voice rising in desperation. You have to believe me. It's real. It was there, tall with hollow eyes, and I think he's just scared. Another voice chimed in, trying to dismiss the mounting panic. Let us not entertain this nonsense. But the air crackled with an electric tension. The moonlit night seemed to inhale sharply as if bracing for what was to follow. Children peeked from behind parents, wide-eyed. Someone shouted for a lantern, anything to push back the dark closing in around them. Then from the tree line beyond, a soft chuckle floated through the air. It was that same laughter, the one that had haunted Manuel's dreams and chased him through the village. Gasps erupted. The identity of the sound made every hair stand on end. We need to get it, shouted a younger villager, clutching a makeshift weapon. We can't let it roam freely among us. An elder raised a hand for silence. Listen, he said gravely. If what Manuel says is true, we need to be careful. An Aswang feeds on fear. We must stand together. Suddenly they saw movement. A shadow danced just outside the lantern's glow, shifting, transforming. Panic swept through the crowd. They could see it clearly now. A tall figure with elongated limbs creeping from the underbrush. Fear twisted the villagers' expressions, and chaos erupted. Run! Someone yelled, and the crowd scattered. Chaos becoming a storm of terrified bodies all crashing into one another. Manuel himself felt immobilized, rooted in place as his instincts screamed at him to flee. But what good would escape do? The creature was out there, lurking in the dark, feeding on their terror, just beyond reach. Then, as the villagers streamed away from the creature, their scattered cries melded into one cacophony of panic voices weaving together in a tapestry of fear and uncertainty. Manuel's chest tightened. He needed to face this darkness. He could not allow it to consume anyone else. Gathering his resolve, he stepped forward, clutching a heavy branch he found on the ground. I have to confront it, he muttered, half to himself. I can't let it take another soul. But as he moved into the darkness, the laughter returned closer now, sinister and mocking. He looked back at the village, what remained of their tranquil lives swirling into an abyss of hysteria. What awaited him beyond the light? The ground trembled once more, and Manuel's heart pounded. A shadowy figure emerged, gliding just beyond the edges of reality, challenging his courage. This was only the beginning. The true horror was yet to reveal itself. The shadows twisted and flickered in the lantern light, creating strange shapes that danced like marionettes drawn from the depths of fear. Manuel tightened his grip on the branch, his knuckles white against the dark wood. A single breath in, then out. He could hear the frenzy of the crowd behind him, but he pushed their panic aside. It was the thing in front of him he had to confront from the corner of his eye. He saw it. A sliver of shimmering movement as the figure drew nearer. It was tall and thin, its limbs stretched unnaturally long, almost skeletal. Hollow, burning eyes locked onto Manuel as if savoring the taste of his fear, a predatory gaze that made his stomach churn. With each heartbeat, time seemed to crawl. He glanced back once, seeing the villagers scrambling toward their homes, slamming doors shut, locking every window. They were leaving him alone, the burden of protection sinking heavily on his shoulders. Face me, he shouted, though his voice trembled. The creature stopped, tilting its head as if puzzled. The laughter echoed again, deep and guttural, echoing off the dark trees and enveloping him in a thick blanket of dread. Why do you linger? It teased, its voice like dry leaves rustling in a cold wind. Manuel's resolve fought against the chill creeping up his spine. What did it want? Was it merely to haunt them, to feed on their fear? He was no hero, just a simple man driven to push back against the night. This is my village, he yelled, surprising himself with the fierceness in his tone. And then it moved. The creature rushed toward him with impossible speed. Limbs extending, shadows stretching as if mocking the very idea of life. Panic surged. Manuel swung the branch, connecting with a sickening thud against the creature's side. It let out a horrific wail, a cacophony of rage and agony that sent Manuel staggering back. The laughter was gone, replaced by an unsettling silence. He felt the ground shift beneath him, a pulsing tremor, as if the earth itself was responding to the disturbance. The villagers stood at a distance now, their faces painted in the glow of lanterns, eyes wide in horror. But he could not turn back. He needed answers, not just for himself but for them. Why are you doing this? He demanded, standing his ground. The creature hesitated, hovering just beyond reach. its elongated fingers curling like claws. Because Manuel, little boys like you forget to remain afraid. It hissed. And when you forget, the darkness begins to feast. A wave of cold washed over him. Fear wrapped around his lungs, pulling tighter until it felt impossible to breathe. But then he realized it thrived on fear. The moment he recognized that, something shifted inside him. The weight of dread began to lighten. No, he said firmly. You won't take this village. We are not afraid of you. But as soon as the words left his mouth, the creature's eyes glimmered with darker intent. It began to shift, morphing into shapes that twisted into remnants of villagers, lost to time, familiar faces filled with panic, trapped in eternal shadows. A scream tore through his thoughts, blending with the moan of the night, wrapping around him like a shroud. He backed away slowly, recognizing that the shadows weren't empty. They were memories, echoes of lives snuffed out by fear. Suddenly a voice broke through the haze. Manuel. It was the elder from before. You need to let go. You must. The ground shuddered violently beneath them, cutting off his thoughts, and Manuel caught a glimpse of destruction. The Aswang was not alone. Whatever birthed this horror lurked just beyond the veil of shadows. His heart hammered, urgency rising. We're running out of time, Manuel shouted, awareness flooding, but the crowd was frozen, trapped between disbelief and terror. Would they fight or succumb? As the darkness pulsed aggressively, a ripple of energy spread through the air. Manuel squared his shoulders, facing the growing terror. The moon overhead flickered as if struggling against an unseen force. Together, he cried, rallying what strength he had left. What would they choose? Would fear win? Or could they discover a strength hidden within themselves? But just as hope sparked within him, the shadows shifted again, revealing something more horrific than before. A twisted form began to emerge, its intentions clearer and closer than ever. What lay ahead could change everything. The shadows writhed and twisted, revealing not just the Aswang but a swarm of darker shapes birthing from the void. Each figure distorted, stirring whispers of lost souls, beckoning a tale of destruction. Manuel stumbled back, heart racing. What is this? He gasped, panic lacing his words among the figures. A face became clearer, a neighbor, Tomas, his expression one of sheer terror, eyes wide and pleading. Help us, the image echoed. A haunting plea that stirred something deep within Manuel. We didn't forget. Tomas's voice faded into silence, replaced by the gaping maw of the Aswang before him. With its newfound form shifting under the pale moonlight, the creature loomed larger. A wave of dread crashed over him, but something flickered in Manuel's chest, a powerful spark. The villagers' eyes darted to him. Confusion splattered across their faces. They needed a leader, a symbol of courage against the overwhelming tide of fear. No, he shouted, his voice slicing through the gloom. This ends now. A strange warmth surged through his limbs, battling the icy grasp of despair. The shadows hesitated, their edges flickering in uncertainty as if sensing his defiance. Suddenly, the ground erupted like a volcano beneath their feet. The villagers gasped, alarm flooding the air as fissures widened, spewing forth images of their past, their own fears laid bare, the very memories the Aswang fed upon. Manuel saw the sorrow in their faces, shared laughter turning to cries. Remember, he yelled, his voice gaining strength. We are not just shadows of our past. We are more than our fears. His words resonated, sparking recognition in the hearts of the crowd, igniting their fervor. The specter of the Aswang recoiled, the transformation faltering. Its eyes, once ablaze with malice, now flickered, and the shadows began to retreat. But it wasn't gone, not yet. It lunged forward swifter now, with an angry howl that pierced the air, as the villagers began to join their voices with his. Together they shouted, channeling their collective strength into a single force rising against the dark. But the Aswang was relentless. It twisted and turned, desperately trying to drown out their cries, summoning its own legions of despair that tried to wrap around their minds like a vice. Manuel could feel the suffocating fear clawing at him, yet hope surged an ember in a consuming darkness. Fight! He cried, urging them on, every breath like fire in his lungs. They wouldn't just stand and fall. They could break the cycle. Another tremor rocked the ground, but this time it wasn't an earthquake. It was the surge of their unified spirit. Light erupted from their chant, filling the space with a brilliance that began to push back the shadows, illuminating the twisted features of the Aswang. But something shifted in the air. A sudden surge of energy that stole his breath and sent a chill down his spine. A new figure loomed behind the Aswang, pulsating with a more sinister darkness, and Manuel's heart sank. This thing, whatever it was, felt even more malevolent, prowling behind its minion with hungry intent. As the brightness of their cries flickered against the encroaching darkness, Manuel felt the weight of their hope and dread intertwining. Could they truly defeat this entity that thrived on their collective fear? Or had they just awakened something worse? Then came a deafening silence. As the air thickened and shifted, a premonition that something catastrophic was about to unfold. What else lay in the shadows waiting to erupt against them? A heavy stillness blanketed the air, as if the world itself held its breath, waiting for the inevitable clash. The figure lurking behind the Aswang began to take shape, a writhing form that twisted in unnatural ways. Manuel could barely suppress the fear gripping his chest, but he fought it, anchoring his gaze on the emboldened faces of his neighbors. This dreadful reality, however, demanded confrontation. "Stay together," he shouted, locking eyes with the nearest villager. "We don't face this alone." His voice, though strained, began to solidify their resolve. The villagers huddled close, their hands clasped, their voices rising as one, creating an anthem of defiance against the encroaching darkness. The malevolent form pulsed with the promise of despair. An icy wind gusted through the clearing, chilling them, as if reminding everyone present of the fear that lay dormant in their hearts. Despite the icy grip of the shadows, the warmth of unity enveloped them, and they stood their ground, trembling yet determined. Suddenly, a guttural scream echoed through the night, reverberating off the earth like thunder. The Aswang jerked forward, lunging closer, its teeth bared. But before it could reach them, a blinding light erupted from the villagers, a fierce response to the creature's hungry advance. The illumination burst like a star being birthed, and Manuel felt it resonate deep within him, the memory of all their shared joys and pains surging forth together, amplifying their voices to form a harmonious shield. Yet a strange laughter crept through the shadows, low and mocking. The new figure behind the Aswang emerged clearer, a twisted silhouette with eyes like molten gold, glimmering with malevolence that ignited a primal terror deep within every villager. "You think you can resist?" it hissed, the sound curling like smoke around them. "Your memories are nothing but fuel for me." Manuel's heart raced as realization dawned. This entity wasn't he, just another predator of nightmares. It thrived on the anguish they tried to escape, feeding off their past as if it were a banquet laid before it. With every nasty secret and cut wound from years gone by, it drank deeply, growing stronger while they fought to break free. "Think of your families," he urged, desperation filling his voice with urgency. "We will not be mere meals for this thing. Our strength lies in unity." As if in response to his call, a radiant energy coursed through the villagers, igniting a blaze in their hearts. Memories of laughter, love, and unbreakable bonds sparked within the crowd. Faces brightened as they combined their light, cascading over one another like waves of hope crashing against despair. But just as the brightness threatened to overwhelm the darkness, the malevolent figure let out a shriek of rage that shook the very ground beneath their feet, scattering the villagers momentarily as panic gripped their hearts. The shadows around them pulsed violently, coiling tight like a beast preparing to strike. In that moment of chaos, shadows curled around Manuel's ankles, dragging him back toward the abyss. Unable to move, he fought against the pull with every fiber of his being. "No!" he screamed, glancing back at his friends. Their faces mirrored his fear, yet determination flickered in their eyes. Would they lose him? Or was this merely the beginning of something far worse? A darkness that hungered not just to defeat them, but to consume their very souls? "What will you choose?" the creature whispered, the words curling around him like smoke. Fear or hope? Despair or unity? With the darkness closing in and his heart pounding in his ears, Manuel clenched his fists. The answer was a choice that would echo through their lives forever. What would it take to banish the shadows for good? Manuel felt the cold, slick darkness wrap around him, dragging him toward despair. His muscles strained, teeth gritted against the invisible force that sought to claim him. He let out a guttural cry, a plea for strength that echoed, ricocheting off the trees and blending with the cries of the villagers. "Help! Hold on to me!" His heart raced, pounding against his ribs like a wild animal. The shadows clawed at him, dark fingers weaving into his skin, chilling him to the bone. He could see his friends hesitate, fear paralyzing them momentarily. The sight of their faltering resolve sliced through him like a knife. "Don't let it take me," Manuel shouted, desperation spilling from his lips like blood from a wound. With each word he felt the pull becoming stronger, his footing trembling. And then something clicked. The villagers rallied, not one could falter. Together they raised their voices, their chants a cacophony of memories, of laughter shared around daytime fires, of whispered promises under the stars. The brightness surged again, a wave of light exploding outward, pushing against the heavy shroud of shadow, but the figure with the molten eyes merely laughed, a sound that cut through the explosive unity like a blade. "You think your memories can save you? I have come to consume them." Manuel's vision blurred as the light intertwined with the tension. It felt like a battle of ages, hope against despair. The shadows twisted like serpents, striking at the hearts of every villager. One by one they were slipping, the strength wavering in their eyes. "No," a villager cried, his voice drowning in the chaos. "We can't lose ourselves again." Determination surged through their gathered form, pushing back against the darkness, feeding on one another's strength, and reigniting their shared memories. "Look," Manuel gasped, his breath hitching. He indicated the figure that wove above them, a darkness trembling where the light pushed it back. "It can't handle us when we're together." The laughter faded, replaced with a low growl. Shadows recoiled, seeming almost sentient in their retreat. Like waves crashing against a rock, they recoiled yet accelerated, becoming even more frenzied, desperate. "Keep pushing," Manuel yelled, but he felt the weight of the entity pull harder than ever. His friend's courage ignited, but he could sense the strain beginning to wear on them. Shadows danced like flames, flickering dangerously low. Each chant seemed to sap their energy, pulling from their souls. In that fleeting moment, he glimpsed the Aswang again, stirring, drawn to the chaos as if it were savoring a feast. Its mouth curled in a smirk, poised to strike once more. "Face yourself, Manuel. Your greatest fear," the creature hissed, its voice smooth as silk yet sharp like glass. "All your regret, your pain, it will consume you just like it has consumed the others. You will make a fine addition now," Manuel roared, the word drenched in the heat of wrath. A spark ignited in him, fueled by the bond with his neighbors. Memories surged, their lives intertwined in joy, grief, laughter, and love, each face before him clearer than the moon against the night sky. They were more than just mere villagers. They were family, and within that realization lay the power to fight back. Suddenly, a surge of energy jolted through him, one that felt more potent than fear. It was acceptance, not just of his past but of the collective strength they all shared. "We are stronger than our shadows," he shouted, raising his fists. "Together we create. Together we'll break the chains." As their voices melded in unison, a blinding light erupted, a beacon igniting the night as they pushed against the darkness. The creature howled, the sound a mix of rage and terror, but Manuel felt hope swell inside him, too strong to be snuffed out. But the shadows didn't retreat that easily. They lunged forward, desperate and twisted, trying to drag them into the abyss. Would their bond prove enough? Or would they be dragged down one by one into an eternal night? As the battle raged, an unsettling truth loomed overhead. What if the thing they needed to fight most was not an enemy, but the darkness lingering within themselves? Manuel's heart raced as the cacophony of chants intertwined with the agonizing howls of the Aswang. Desperation thickened the air, wrapping tightly around them like a noose. The villagers were pushing back, but every second felt like an eternity, like the shadows were pulling at the very threads of their souls. With each staggered breath, Manuel felt his strength waning. The warmth of his friends, the light they had ignited together, began to flicker like a candle caught in a fierce storm. The Aswang loomed above, eyes burning like molten metal, glinting with malevolence. "Manuel!" A shout cut through the chaos, the voice of Clara, her resolve still fierce despite the trembling in her hands. "Focus. Picture your happiest moment." He could barely think through the haze of terror. What was his happiest moment? Faces blurred, memories slipping through his grasp. But then it came to him, the laughter of children, a game of tag lit by the soft glow of lanterns, his mother's gentle smile as she watched from the doorway. In an instant he seized it. The harvest festival. Dancing in the moonlight. Manuel shouted and everyone echoed him, tapping into the memory, letting it wash over them. The Aswang recoiled, the sound of its laughter now tinged with uncertainty. But the darkness didn't relent. It surged forward, roiling like a storm, claws reaching out greedily. Manuel could see the figures of his friends falter, their faces draining of color. The shadows whispered to them, twisting old fears into new terrors. "You're not enough, you'll never be enough." "No," Manuel yelled, defiance burning hotter within him. "We are enough. We are family." The words spurred a flicker of light, and one by one, the villagers remembered their own moments of joy shared with each other, their voices amplifying into a fortress of determination. The Aswang howled, a sound so dreadful it raked against their nerves. But their resolve as a collective pierced through its despairing cry. The villagers stood taller, united against the encroaching darkness, the shared light igniting an ancient spark deep within the forest. Suddenly, a grave stillness enveloped them, as if time itself held its breath. Shadows twisted, becoming grotesque forms that slashed through the murky air. Just when it looked like the darkness might swallow them whole, Manuel felt a new sensation, an unyielding warmth surging in his chest, expanding outward like roots anchoring him to the earth. Then the first glimmer of dawn broke over the horizon. It illuminated the clearing, and with its arrival, the shadows shrieked in agony. The Aswang staggered back, its molten eyes wide with terror. For a fleeting moment, hope flickered within the hearts of the villagers. "Keep fighting. We're not alone," Clara chanted, pulling back the darkness with sheer will. The others joined in, chanting a mantra of their unity, refusing to yield. But just as it appeared their battle was turning, the ground shook beneath them. A crack split the earth, fiery fissures snaking outward, a chasm erupting from the depths, threatening to pull them all under. The shadows roared in triumph, sensing the opportunity to strike back. "What is happening?" Manuel screamed as the earth threatened to betray them, and then from the depths of the fissure, a chilling voice slithered up, entwining around his heart. "You think this ends with light? You have only awoken me." Cold fear gripped Manuel like icy hands around his throat. No, this was just the beginning. Would they be swallowed by the darkness they fought? Or had they merely unleashed a greater terror? The tremors of the earth grew louder, the fissure beneath them roaring like a hungry beast, eager to consume everything in its path. Manuel's heart pounded in sync with the ground as he grasped Clara's wrist, panic coursing through him. The villagers around them closed ranks, instinctively forming a tight circle, their faces fixed with fear and determination. "Stay together," Clara urged, her voice a lifeline amid the mounting chaos. "We can't let it break us apart." The Aswang screeched anew, a wailing cry of agony mixed with rage, as if wounded by the very light they had garnered. Manuel glanced up, the creature's form shifting, expanding, tearing free from shadows that clung to it like oil to water. It loomed larger, taking on grotesque shapes that twisted through the shadows. There was something more than just darkness, it felt like a living entity, pulsating with a malignant hunger. "Focus on the light," he yelled again, but doubt whispered in the back of his mind. What if the light they summoned was just a flicker in the infinite night? The shadows writhed as if sensing his hesitance, dripping their slick terror across the clearing. Suddenly, the fissure erupted. Fire and smoke shot up into the early morning sky, casting an ominous glow across the villagers' faces. Manuel felt heat wash over him, boiling hot and suffocating. The ground beneath them began to crumble, their safe haven turning to a treacherous precipice. "Back! Move back!" Someone shouted, but there was no safe retreat from this hell. They were trapped, ensnared between the chasm and the monstrous Aswang, which was now more furious than ever. Then the unthinkable happened. From the depths of the split earth, a black mist poured forth, curling around their ankles like sneaky fingers. It choked the chants rising from the villagers, squeezing the air from their lungs. Faces turned pale, limbs shook. Terror clawed at their throats. "This is your end." The voice from the abyss slithered through the fog, sibilant and alluring. It drew closer, the whisper seeping into their minds. "You cannot fight what has always been. These shadows have awakened, and they come for what is theirs." Manuel felt darkness wrap around him, promising comfort amidst chaos. Images of loss and despair flooded into his mind, twisting the happiest memories into nightmares. He stumbled, fighting against the rising tide of fear and sorrow. "Don't let it in." Clara's voice cut through his turmoil, sharp and clear. He caught a glimpse of her, determined, unwavering, and suddenly the warmth in his chest surged stronger. His moment of clarity ignited inspiration in those around him, and Clara rallied them, raising her hands to the sky. "Remember, the light is born from our joy. We hold the power." The villagers took a collective breath, deep and unyielding. They leaned into one another, the warmth of shared stories flowing through the formation like a lifeline, memories rising above the suffocating darkness. Then everything exploded, not in destruction but in a birth of light. Strings of radiance shot from their joined hands, arcing toward the Aswang, illuminating the darkness like 1,000 shooting stars. The shadows writhed and screamed, fading into the light, but not without leaving a mark. And then, with a final roar, the Aswang lunged forward, mouth wide, ready to swallow them whole, revealing impossibly sharp teeth glistening with malice. Manuel could see it, the fury, the desperation in its molten eyes, but as the darkness swirled one last time, the ground beneath him began to shake violently. As he stood there, a chilling realization crashed over him. The earth was not only splitting apart, it had shifted, revealing an even deeper chasm filled with an ancient horror that loomed beyond comprehension. "Manuel!" Clara shouted, but he was already stepping toward the edge, drawn by a pull that was irresistible. Shadows shouted promises of power, of revenge, of everything he had once feared. Would he leap into the abyss and confront this new terror? Or could he keep his friends safe from the darkness unraveling around them? With every fiber of his being, he tried to fight the draw, but the choice weighed heavily upon him as the world began to tear itself apart. What awaited him beyond the precipice? As Manuel teetered on the edge, a cascade of memories flooded his mind, but they were no longer comforting. Instead, they morphed into haunting images of what could happen if he surrendered to the shadows. Faces of friends, those who had sacrificed for him, whose laughter he cherished, flashed before him. They were demanding yet encouraging, urging him to choose light over darkness. "Don't!" Clara screamed, her voice breaking through the fog. Her cautions were anchors in a sea of despair. But the abyss called, resonating like a siren's song, promising power and resolution in a world that had been shattered. He could feel Clara pulling him back, but every pulse of darkness stirred something deep within, an echo of a rage he had never known. The Aswang shrieked again, its elongated form shifting with twisted grace as if mocking his indecision. The ground cracked wider, an insatiable maw, ready to swallow everything whole. Still, part of him hesitated. What awaited him if he crossed that threshold? In that moment the villager's light surged, a beacon amidst the swirling dread. It illuminated the chasm and revealed its contents. Faint glimmers of ancient artifacts and souls long forgotten flickered within the depths. He could sense their history, the weight of anguish, betrayal, yet also hope. "Are you ready to face them?" Clara's voice was now pleading, desperate. Her grip on his wrist tightened. "We are stronger together. But we can't lose you to this madness. Stay with us." Manuel clenched his teeth, battling the urge to step closer. Suddenly he caught a glimpse of something in the swirling mist below. A flash of silver, a pendant? It looked familiar, like the one his mother wore. Memories of her warm embrace, tales she had spun about bravery and family, surged forth. "In the darkness there is always light," she had told him. That was his anchor. He had to fight. "The light!" he shouted, the words erupting from his chest. "Join me." He turned, eyes ablaze with determination. "We have to push back. We can't let this darkness consume us." In one sweeping motion, he raised his arms, shutting his eyes against the chaos and focusing on the warmth of his friends. The light they had ignited grew stronger, a radiant barrier against the encroaching shadows. Light streamed from their hands, weaving together, brightening the air around them like a rising sun. The Aswang recoiled, its grotesque features writhing in agony. It screeched again, but this time there was fear buried in the sound. As they pressed forward, the shadows screeched as if feeling the weight of their collective light. The fissure beneath them trembled, the very ground shifting as if it could sense the encroaching unity. But even in their moment of triumph, the ground quaked violently like a beast thrashing in pain. The ancient horror from the depths wasn't finished. A rumble reverberated, piercing through the villagers' chants, cutting deep. From the cracks, broken chains glimmered, whispering of souls trapped and forgotten. "What is that?" someone cried out in horror. Eyes wide, they watched as the chains slowly began to rise, slithering like serpents from the chasm, rattling ominously. Each link a reminder of the dark history that had been buried beneath them for ages. Manuel's heart pounded, a clock counting down. Clara's grip still held tight, their fates intertwined. The light weakened, moments flickering like a dying flame. In that heartbeat they had to decide. Would they risk it all to stand against the darkness and confront the ancient horrors that loomed before them? Or would they be consumed by fear, allowing the shadows to engulf their hopes? "Now!" Manuel shouted as the ground roared again, with chains dancing dangerously close. They had to fight not just for their lives, but for the souls still trapped within those depths. Would they summon the strength to push forward, or would despair claim them all? The villagers held their breath, anticipation and dread coiling tightly around them. What lay in store for them in the darkness that cried out for release? Manuel felt the weight of the encroaching darkness pressing against him, swirling shadows that pulsed with malevolence. The villagers stood close, fear etched on their faces, but determination shone in their eyes, a fiery testament to their resolve. Together they formed a unity that no shadow could break. Raising their hands, they summoned the last vestiges of hope and light that resided within them. "Now!" Manuel shouted, locking his gaze with Clara's, a desperate plea igniting their bond. The villagers echoed his cry, their voices rising like a tide, a collective swell bursting forth against the storm of darkness. The light expanded, bright and radiant, washing over the twisted figures writhing before them. The Aswang hissed, its agonized screech echoing through the very bones of the earth. It staggered backwards as if pushed by an invisible force, the shadows clawing at its form, but unable to breach the walls of light the villagers had forged together with heart-stopping clarity. Manuel sensed their shared history, the memories that bound them, tales of joy, laughter, and resilience wedging against despair. The chains emerging from the dark fissure hung in the balance. They were a manifestation of the pain they had endured as a community. They could either succumb to fear or rise as a beacon of defiance. "Look at what we've built," he urged, drawing strength from the flicker of hope in every face around him. "Our laughter, our love, all of it as powerful as the darkness. We will not be the meal of shadows any longer." The villagers clasped hands tighter, and in that moment, a surge of warmth enveloped them, igniting one last fierce wave of brightness. Manuel felt the brightness cleanse the chaos around them, illuminating the chains for the first time, faint echoes of lives caught in the clutches of fear, lost but not entirely forgotten. "One final push," Clara shouted, her voice ringing with fierce conviction. "For every soul lost. For every moment of laughter shared. We are family." With that rallying cry they exploded together into a dance of light and sound, their collective magic piercing through the sky in a glorious eruption of brilliance that sliced through the dark. The chains recoiled and twisted, retreating as the shadows lost their grip on the village, their grip that had threatened to consume them all. The Aswang let out a final screech, its shape collapsing under the intensity of the combined light. The shadows writhed, desperate to reclaim their power, but the villagers stood united, refusing to back down. For every ounce of fear that attempted to creep in, laughter and love surged forth in defiance, and then from the depths of the chasm, an ancient echo rolled as if the earth itself was awakening. The chains shattered like brittle glass, scattering into oblivion as the radiant light enveloped the entire clearing. Wisps of souls, freed at last, spiraled upward into the sky as dawn painted the horizon peach and gold. The ground trembled one last time. But this quake was different. It was not a signal of danger, but the earth's triumphant sigh, releasing all the oppression that had clung to it for centuries. Birds sang freshly from the trees, joyful music blending with the gentle rustle of the leaves. The villagers stood together, panting and worn but victorious. There was silence, sweet and peaceful, wrapping around them like a loving embrace. Tears streamed down the faces of those who had witnessed the night's horrors and emerged on the other side unbroken and alive. Manuel, heart swelling, looked into the faces of his neighbors, now friends and family forged in fire and darkness. He understood that the true power had always resided within them all along. Fear had tried to tear them apart but ultimately would never win. The light they had summoned together would ripple through their lives, forever echoing their strength. As the sun broke free from the horizon, Its warm rays washed over their skin, and Manuel let out a deep breath. They were free. They had faced the dark and won. Together we are strong, he whispered. To Clara, who nodded, her smile full of hope. Never forget. In the days that followed, villagers spoke openly about their fears and shared stories that had slipped through the cracks of time, nurturing connections that ran deeper than any shadow could reach. They turned their gaze toward the future, not with fear, but with awareness, aware of the darkness that lurked but choosing to shine light upon it instead. As time unfurled, villagers embraced the lessons learned from the encounter, transforming moments of fear into conversation, laughter, and community. As the Aswang faded into legend, their unity became the heart of the village. Never again, Manuel vowed to himself, his chest tight with emotion. They would face whatever shadows came next, hand in hand, light in their hearts, unbreakable and proud. And as the years danced on, stories of the night would be shared by lantern light, turning their ordeal into a legend of resilience for generations to come, forever reminding them of their strength. They would not just remember the horrors. They would share the light. Act now. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Let's show the world our love. Flood the comments section with your reactions and wild theories about this ending. I want to hear from everyone. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this thrilling conclusion. Your support matters, and it's time to show it.